gave us a sign. Sorry. There's usually a signal. Welcome everybody to Tresk Festival in Ljubljana. We're doing this remotely, a panel on or a discussion on various forms of help that musicians and artists received during this trying COVID era. We'll try to shed some light on this from various perspectives around Europe with our guests, and maybe touch on some other subjects about changes in the music industry because of COVID that have been really problematic in the last year and a half. My guests today are Ginevra Nervi from
Hello.
Italy. Hi, Ginevra.
Hello, guys.
She's joining us via audio because of a slightly bad internet connection. So I hope we'll hear each other okay. And my next guest is Timothée Quost, joining us from France. Hi, Timothée.
Hi, everybody.
Hi. We have to maybe we will be joined by also by a musician, label owner, and producer, Chris Eckman from Ljubljana. We're still waiting for him, but we'll start anyway, so there isn't any delay. We're supposed to be joined by Russian artist Katya from Sado Opera Collective, but she made her excuses. She couldn't sadly join us today. So if we should just start, and maybe if Chris joins us hopefully later on. Maybe we should start with you, Ginevra. You're a bit of a, let's say, TV and film producer and artists, mainly in electronic music, as I understood, doing a lot of work in TV and film. And let me ask you, firstly, how was this past COVID year and a half? How did that have an effect on your output? Did this make a lot of new things for you to do, as we were all sitting on our couches and watching TV? Tell me some of your experiences.
Well, it's a good question. During the pandemic, fortunately, I was working with different productions abroad, so the lockdown didn't have a very strong impact to my creative process, because I was working with Mexico and the United States, and we worked, as we did before the pandemic. So this actually COVID, for the scoring and for the creative process didn't have a very strong impact, but it obviously have a strong impact on my artistic profile as solo artist, because we were in lockdown, and we couldn't perform And in this case, I received very different kind of vibes from this atypical situation. And in this case, the lockdown and the pandemic has a strong impact on my creative process, but exclusively on my solo project. Fortunately, I never stopped working on my composition for TV shows and future films. And I feel lucky about that. I feel very lucky.
Great. Thank you. Chris, hi. Chris
Hi.
Eckman.
Yeah, sorry,
us.
I was late. I was trying to get on, but I was having internet issues. So
no problem.
I'm here now.
Everyone has those from time to time.
Yeah, thanks.
Let me just introduce Chris Eckman. I think you're joining us from Ljubljana, right?
I'm in Ljubljana, yeah.
In American, not in Paris, in Slovenia. A producer, musician, record label owner. Sorry, I will just introduce you, and I will now turn to Timothy and give you then
okay.
a couple of questions. Timothy, you're a jazz experimental musician, trumpet player, improviser, as I understood. How was this past year and a half for you? As I think maybe jazz musicians were particularly impacted by this this time without gigs.
Well, I would like to answer with a question. Just why do you say that jazz musicians were particularly impacted by the? Why jazz musicians, especially?
I think that as in my experience, jazz musicians do a lot of touring, a lot of playing, maybe even more than let's say pop or rock musicians. Pop or rock musicians, they have a tour. Mm-hmm. And the tour is finished, and then they go to a studio. As I know, jazz bands or improvisers here, they tour and play all the time because that's their life. So if I'm wrong, please correct me.
Actually, when France got into the first lockdown, I was in tour in the US, just starting the tour. So that was quite epic, just to to get back to France. And for sure, after that, I would say for 1 year, I didn't play so much gigs, or there was some time, how you say, like hidden gig, a thing that you cannot really do, but you still do it. In France, we are very specialists for this kind of thing. But I have the chance I'm also a composer, so I compose for many ensembles and stuff like this. And it happens that it was exactly at the good time for me. I had some composition I had to do. So finally, I had a lot of job during this period, but that was not so much concert for sure, like everybody. So finally, that was mostly, working at home, composing, and I worked for school a lot. And I went into many schools just to, like present stuff to kids or prepare concerts with kids, or like semi-professional and not professional things with kids and professional musicians and stuff like that. So I was very, very lucky because most of the time I play in caves and for nothing all around the world. And for this fucking year, I had a lot of rehearsals, like paid rehearsals and stuff like that. And I was really lucky because I know that around me, a lot of my friends, they are just like, super hard for them.
Yeah, there was a lot of depression in the music business. So two out of three. Chris, were you also lucky in the past year and a half?
Well, my life is kind of split between two things. I run a record label, and also I'm a musician. The musician thing actually was kind of positive because I had time to focus on composing, which because of my day job running a record label, I get less and less time for that. So actually, I got an album out of the 2020, that whole process of being locked down and just being able to focus, not traveling, just gave me time to focus on writing and putting together a record. So that was very good. The other side of what I do was extremely challenging, was less, I would say it was not easy at all. It was sort of, I was living in this kind of dual existence. On one hand, things were really, static, like they were for everybody. But with just the basic day-to-day stuff of running a record label, it was just complete chaos. Trying to ship things from place to place, releases, you're wondering why you're putting them out because all the tours were canceled that supported the releases. And it was just, it was kind of just day-to-day, like one long run of problems for months and months. It's sort of just settling down now. But yeah, also, we survived that. I mean, we were able to make it through, but it was sort of a mixed blessing for me.
I can relate to that regarding the label business. What we did on our small label is we just stopped all releases and waited till this spring so we could do them with the tours.
Yeah, I mean, this is one strategy. There were so many that we were already too deep in to do that. The manufacturing was in process. We operate on a very international level, so we had, ads bought in publications. There were, reviews coming. There was just a bunch of stuff we couldn't call back. It was just out there, and that was very frustrating.
I get it. So our main topic today is different types of help that musicians and artists, everybody working in music got from their, let's say, countries, governments, collecting societies. And I would like to get your take on that, maybe just a couple of points. What happened in Slovenia, as someone who comes from Slovenia and works here in the music business. I have a lot of musicians as friends, as partners, as co-workers. In Slovenia, what happened was when COVID hit, there was a brief period of confusion. Nobody really believed that we will be without concerts for a big part of the year. But then the government put in place a program of, let's say, a universal income that everybody that had a small music business or a small, they were self-employed as a musician, got a couple, I think 700 euros per month, help from the government. The collecting society, SACEM, here for authors and writers, and IPF for neighboring rights societies for musicians, recording musicians. They put out a couple of advances for the whole year. And for labels, I can say there was, or concert organizers for firms, and for others who work in the music industry, there were a couple of, let's say, help from banks and something like that. But you had to have a lot of employees, and as you all know, music business doesn't work like that. So you don't have a lot of employees on your payroll, so there weren't many labels eligible for help. So I would like to ask you first, maybe Ginevra, who has to leave us in 10 minutes. How was that handled in your country, in Italy?
Yeah, in Italy, we received, due to the pandemic, help from collecting societies and from the government too. Especially in Italia, we have SIAE, the most important collecting society, and Nuove Maie. And both Italian Music Export SIAE and Nuove Maie supported me on more than one occasion, you know. Italian Music Export SIAE supported my live project in different ways, and SIAE also, you know, create a fund for artists during the pandemic. They create an extraordinary support fund that was set up in favor of the company's agents, self-employed workers on a commission basis for 4 million euro, I think. And SIAE also gave another one support fund. They created in favor of all members, valid for 2020 and 2021, of 60 million euros, I think. And they also create other very interesting initiatives. For example, exclusively for its young members, SIAE made available hundreds of audio and video kits, headphones, mic, sound cards, etc., and accompanied by the related webinars. For example, the topics were technical bases to make the most of your audio setup, technology for storytelling, and something like that. And the initiative is especially born with the aim of supporting training and creative activity. Was carried out in collaboration with the Praise Media Technologies and with Engineering Studio. And yeah, you know, SIAE made lots of good initiative during the pandemic. And I think the most important of this initiative was the fund that they create for artists and self-employed artists. And yeah, also Nuove Maie, the other one, collecting
neighboring rights.
Yeah, support a lot the artists during the pandemic. They carry out a fundamental action of extraordinary support for its artists, giving life to 3 financial aid funds, one of which is dedicated to the memory of Stefano Dorazzi and Gigi Proietti, for a total amount of over 20 million euros. And I think they realized something extraordinary for our country, because in Italy, artists are, you know, they are protected in weird way. And during the pandemic, SIAE and Nuove Maie shown how they care about the artists. And yeah. So are artists in Italy mainly self-employed on like they have a small firm where they work for themselves, or are they let's say employed on the Ministry of Culture, let's say, like in Slovenia? No, mostly we are self-employed.
So the government, so the country itself, so the government didn't give you any universal income?
Because the government gave fund and to SIAE and Italian Music and Nuove Maie. And after that, the 2 collecting societies send the money to artists. But yeah, also the government gave it help to artists.
Great. Look, Ginevra, I know you have to hurry. You are doing a project. So if you have to leave, we'll totally understand. And I thank you for your participation, however brief it was, and nice to have met you.
Thank you so much. Sorry for this inconvenience.
No problem at all.
I really have to run.
Good luck at on your project.
Thank you so much. Nice.
Ciao.
Nice night. Ciao. Ciao.
So Timothée, maybe Timothée, maybe if you tell us what was going on in France on this subject.
Yeah, sure. There was two things for sure. SACEM, the SACEM, that is like collecting the rights in France. Yeah, they did something. They did one main program to help artists, and that was basically based on you had to write a letter to say, okay, I had like so much concert canceled, and I had so much like work I didn't have, and because you didn't earn the rights of the concerts, then they said, okay, we can like give you the money for those concerts. So that was one thing. And you know that in France we have a very specific status for artists, which is very close to the unemployed insurance, which is basically an unemployed insurance for musicians. And this thing, like every year, you have to prove you must prove that you play like, let's say 43 gigs a year, and those gigs have to be paid a certain amount to be counted. And when you can prove that you played those 43 gigs, then you get paid for every day you don't play during 1 year.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah, so we are very, very lucky for that.
Interesting.
Even if it's not so easy to get into it, because you must find all the concerts and get the money and blah blah. Anyway,
but you get paid backwards, like so after the end of the year you get paid for past months.
No, it's for next year.
For next year, okay.
But in the end of
then you
each
have
month,
to prove, yeah,
and in the end of each month, I will say, okay, this month I played on the 1st, on the 10th, on the 20th, and then they will pay me all the rest of the days. And what they pay for each day is calculated, related to the like my normal fee, let's say my regular fee. Well, anyway, so this thing is very important in France because musicians use it, but also like actors and technicians, and a lot of different practice in the artistic world. And they decided to after the 6 first months of the pandemic, the government decided to extend the rights. So they say, okay, now you get like 1 more year. You don't have to prove anything. You just keep the status, and then you can go on like this and take time to find job and stuff like that. So they did that once, and they did that a second times because it was like continuing, So now until December, I will say until December, we are kind of covered, because we know that we get the help until that, we get the status until that. But for many of the musicians, they didn't work past year, so they are just fucked. So that's basically the two main stuff we have to help us, plus other details, and there is also some how can I say, kind of institutions or
organizations.
Yeah, institutions that are collecting rights for recording music, for recording sessions. Spedidam, it's called. Or Adami is also another institution that's giving a lot of money for festivals and stuff like that. And they also have their own kind of program, And it's always the same. You have like to fill a form, and to explain your situation and say that can be very, very concrete sometimes. Some friend of mine, they were like, shit, man, just I had to change all my kitchen because my heating system was fucked up, and he was like just talking about this, and he got money for that, That was just...
Yeah, I read about what they did on PRS. So the Collecting Society in Britain, they gave food packages for musicians. For musicians in hardship. So there was a really interesting debate. So what is hardship? So you have to be you had to be really, like you said, fucked to get that help. It was tough all over. Chris, did you have anything to add?
Well, as far as support goes, so I intersect mostly with the German system because I'm a songwriter that's been a member of GEMA for 30 some years.
Yeah, I meant to ask you. Yeah, yeah.
I didn't need to draw on support, as I said earlier. In general, music for me is more of a part-time thing now, so it was not necessary for me to do that. But I'm kept up to date on what's happening at GEMA. They had around a 40 million euro fund that they dispersed to songwriters and even to music publishers, meaning publishers are involved in copyrights, not labels. But there were two ways into that system. One was an advance, like you were saying with SACEM, you could get an advance on future royalties, and the second was more of these hardship kind of cases. What you're saying, that you actually make an application and you explain your situation, and the funds were distributed like that. Then there was another layer. This is where my label intersected because I'm in part a German label. We received almost immediately, about, 8 weeks into the first lockdown, we received a grant as a micro company. So exactly the opposite of what you were talking about in terms of the Slovenian system. Because we have just a handful of employees, we were put in a certain category, and we were just actually given a grant. We had to make an application for it, of course, but the application was simply fill out the banking details, And I know that also beyond that, there were a lot of, let's say, self-employed artists that got a grant under this program also. So the artist grants were around 5,000. I know booking agents that got that grant, 5,000, and this was pretty much automatic. We got, because we're a little bit larger, we got 9,000.
Yeah, that's exactly the number I was thinking about, that when I was calculating how much we are losing, and the last year, it would be great to get like 10,000 euro. That's what I was thinking.
That's about what we got.
But in Slovenia, it was totally the opposite. It was like you didn't have a chance to even if you had a chance to get some help for your company, you would probably have to fill out this many forms.
The beauty of this one is that it was really no questions asked. You had to have a certain status, and you got it fast, and there was no payback. It was just a flat out grant. There's no recalculation at the end of the year. It was not so much money that there's this question of, do you need to repay it, and that sort of thing. So it was quite inspired. And I know, there were initiatives in Berlin, directed initiatives to artists also, just done by the city of Berlin. There was I think, again, at least a acknowledgement almost from the beginning that culture is really important and needs to, be given some kind of support during the pandemic.
And that's the German efficiency for you.
It was very fast, I have to say that.
Yeah. In Slovenia, SACEM gave 25% of its income. That was based on a law that the government passed, like a pandemic law. So SACEM could give 25% of all income from the year 2019 for the relief fund. fund. And that was only for Slovenian authors, or let's say members of SACEM, which mainly are Slovenian authors. So there was less, let's say, there was 25% less money for foreign authors based on that. Let me just ask you your opinion. Your opinion on that, as you're a writer for, songwriter for Dirt Music, The Strange, Walkabouts. So you have a lot of repertoire. Do you get? So you're a member of GEMA
yes,
as a songwriter?
Yes, I'm a member of GEMA as a songwriter. That's correct.
So you said that GEMA gave like a 40 million relief fund. Do you know where that money came from?
I don't actually know how that was reallocated, but to my knowledge, I think they have it's a giant organ like SACEM. It's a giant organization. I don't think they were taking 25% from foreign writers, but I could be wrong. I actually don't know. I can't authoritatively answer that.
You would probably notice on the slip of paper you get.
Yeah, you would. I mean, I didn't see any radical decline in what I normally get. Not that much, but
okay. Timothy, let me ask you. There was a lot of questions about. A lot of debate about live streaming of concerts. Did you do any of that, and what's your thoughts about that?
Well, it's a very wide topic, actually. I also wrote a bit about that in a newspaper called Les Allumés du Jazz in France. Yeah, I did a bit. I did maybe 2 live stream concerts.
Paying concerts, like for tickets, or?
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, the audience had to pay to watch it online, but that was only, there were no audience, only live stream concerts. Right. I did 2 of them, and yeah, I must say I did it mostly because that was paid, and that I still needed this concert, to do my status stuff, because I'm really not into this kind of stuff. I mean, I like videos and I like watching videos, and when I was younger, I learned a lot by watching videos for sure. But for me, the time of the concerts, and the presence with the audience is just something that it's maybe the main reason why I do this job. So, well, if we can call that a job, but the main reason why I want to go on stage and I can go over the world and playing for peanuts, because there is like a real person in front of me. But the thing for me, the thing that was really relevant in this situation of pandemic and not being able to play concert with real audience, was the radio concert. And I did one festival like this, and in the end of the festival, it's a super good festival in the south of France, in the Pyrenees Mountains, so in the border with Spain.
Right.
And they did one. They were supposed to do the 30th edition in 2020, but finally that was canceled. And then in December they did the radio edition. And that was really, really, really great for me. And I thought, yeah, that's for me, that's the best solution to play concert in this situation, is to use the tool of the radio. That is not, it's my point of view, but it's not like, to me, it's like keeping the, how could I say? It's not breaking anything in music. It's not like it keeps the music as it is, because you have only the sound, and you don't have the
no distractions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that and that was very clever how they did it, because so there was some concert like a festival, like 2 or 3 concerts every day, every evening, But then during the day, it was like meeting between musicians and in between talks and playing. And I was really happy to do that because I had to meet like two different ensembles in the radio for the first time. And that was really great to have this tool of the radio and the microphone and the studio and to use it as an instrument, you know, and just like try to find kind of new form in between interview and concert and jam session and performance. And I thought, okay, that's really smart to do it like this. And radio is maybe the thing that can help us to play and to give our music in those times, you know. But that's one thing. But on the other hand, as I said, I think that it's not. We need to meet. That we need to gather. Sure, I mean
we need a live audience.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's not only in the music world, in the music realm. I mean, like we need to gather anyway.
Right.
But then for music, I would say that I was much more into playing in the street, for instance. And after the first lockdown, that's what I did. I was like, okay, let's just do it. You know, I need to play. I want to do my job. I want to play for people. People can still walk in the street and go to the shops and stuff. Yeah, because that was after the first lockdown. So I was like, okay, let's just play in the street. And even if it's not like allowed, come on, I can just take my trumpet and play solo, you know, and just let's see. And I think that was really great for people. They really needed that. I needed that, and I think people needed that to have like live music and stuff. And then when we got back in the second lockdown, I must say that we started to play concerts that were not really legal, but we were like, shit, we must do it, you know. So we were still like paying a lot of attention and like respecting the rules and stuff like this, but we were still organizing concerts in caves in Paris or stuff like that.
So you were not caught. You were not caught.
No.
Because there was a lot of people caught in the UK. There were a couple of, let's say, illegal raves and stuff.
Yeah, but you know, that was not this kind of stuff. I mean, that was not the purpose of the concert we were organizing. Was not like having a huge party and drinking a lot. Yeah. That was just about like having, you know, like there is this musician in Belgium, this guitar player, who was like, okay, there is, and I have nothing against religion, huh? But he was like, okay, there is like people going to church, so I will organize a concert in church. And the guy organized like 6 concerts in the afternoon with 10 people, and he played the first song, and then the police came and was like, okay, man, I'm sorry, but it's like 4,000 euros you must pay. And okay, when you see that, it's okay. This guy, he was super respectful and very like really paying attention of every rules we must respect and stuff. So yeah, that's it. That's what I think, that anyway we must keep the relation with the real audience.
I agree with you. I was also not a fan of live streams, but why I'm asking about this is because in Slovenia, what happened was, as soon as people started doing live streams, there was like a feeling among the audience and among the general public and politicians. They say, look, they're doing it. It's not a problem. No concerts. They can survive like this. So we needed like half a year to make them realize that this is not something to replace concerts and money that comes from that.
And something that shouldn't be forgotten about this. You know, I deal with a lot of artists from, you know, places in the world where it's very hard to put together a production level of a live streaming concert, either because of bandwidth or just access to, you know, multiple cameras and things like that.
Good audio.
good audio, and it's really becomes quite, it's in the I wouldn't blame it in the short term, but in the long term, this idea that this will become something that replaces things. I totally agree with Timothy about the audience. This is, of course, the fundamental thing, but even access to being able to be involved in a system that would be built around that would be highly discriminatory. It starts really locking out types of music, regions where people live, and things like that. I mean, for example, this World Music, conference that happens every year, WOMEX, they tried to do an online edition. They did. But, all of the African artists, not all, but a significant amount of them were unable to produce what the conference thought was technically acceptable. Whether that's true or not, that's another issue. But, it became very like, we want 3 or 4 cameras, all of these list of things. And it became, almost as expensive to put this on as to travel to Europe to play the showcase. So it becomes, we often don't think about how this stuff spins out even from our little bubble, which is Europe and so on. It's, I see very little future in it. I think we already see that it starts to, radically die down. And I think, for most artists, the abundance of artists, the monetization of it is minimal.
Yeah.
So it's like if you're selling tickets and you're splitting tickets from, I congratulate them from trying, but I watched artists play at these Kinoshishka, live streams, and there was like sometimes 40 viewers. If you're splitting up the €5 that they were charging to see the concert, it doesn't go very far.
Yeah. Timothy, was there any initiative in France, maybe on behalf of radio stations to support local artists and maybe give them more time on their airwaves? Is there any good practice?
I think you have that in France.
Yeah.
They have the quota, yeah, I know, but
the quota.
Maybe because of the pandemic, did they do it even more, maybe? To get local or French artists to the airwaves.
Yeah, you mean to the airwaves? You mean like
on the radio?
Yeah,
on the playlist. Yeah.
Well, I don't really know about this, about like radio and stuff, if it's really changed something. But Chris, you said something about that you.
Well, I don't know either, really. In terms, I mean, I know that in France there's this quota system for the amount of, let's say, national repertoire that's played. I don't know what that is. I know
like in Slovenia, yeah.
Like in Slovenia,
like a
also.
cultural quota.
Cultural quota.
You know what, guy? I didn't know about that, actually.
You didn't know about that? Oh,
no.
Because it's often talked about, in the context of other places that actually propose doing it. They always refer to the French system.
Yeah. France was the first to do that, and
yes.
they're still sticking by it for all those years. So, yeah, maybe you don't know. You're on the radio all the time. You should maybe listen to it.
I mean, I have mixed feelings about these kind of quotas because, okay, coming from America, obviously the world is polluted with a lot of terrible American music. There's no doubt about that. And I think that these monolithic, dominant cultures, for whatever reason, this does throw things out of balance. English language repertoire and all of these things. I understand all those points, but being someone that's in the business, even the micro business of promoting artists from all over the world, with all kinds of different language groups, I mean, we probably at Glitterbeat have released, I don't know, 100 different languages probably, because many records have multiple languages. So you start to see there's another argument that you start to close access. I mean, the protective idea behind it is understandable. I mean, it's absolutely understandable, especially in smaller markets and smaller language groups. But also the idea that we're potentially locking out, other types of music because they don't make the quota is
other
also
non-American,
yeah. I mean, the English language
yeah.
stuff is one thing. You know, that's I think the argument can easily be made about that, but in terms of other, you know, other language groups, it's a little more. It's just, again, it's something we don't really think about in these discussions, I think, generally.
What I noticed in this past year and a half, when you take away gigs from musicians, you also take away their main, let's say, product placement line. So no gigs means no merchandising sales, almost none. If you take away the web-based merchandising sales, you take away the most possible way to get your CDs or vinyl to the audience when they're like in the mood to buy. And what you're left with is your copyright. So in these times, streaming of music became really a hot topic. I was going to ask you, maybe Chris, from your perspective of a label, and Timothy from your perspective of the musician. Did you notice any changes on streaming platforms, sales, or let's say income?
Yeah, I mean, from a label, you know, it's interesting because I have this split identity. You know, people.
But let's say you're only a label guy.
It's sort of tough. You know, it's strange on the label thing. You know, when you get a certain size repertoire, streaming starts to make sense as a label. You know, there's actually, I mean, we would not have survived 2020 without streaming. That is for sure. No, that's just.
I agree.
Fact. You know, it just simply wouldn't have happened. I remember years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I went to a conference and I was sitting next to the head of Epitaph Records, this punk rock label, the European guy. And, you know, streaming for me at that point was really new. That's even before I had the label. And I was just like, well, what's this streaming like for you guys? He goes, we're making money. I said, really? He goes, yeah, we're growing. And I said, I just don't see how is that possible when the payback is so pathetic? But you realize that it actually, as you gain repertoire, it becomes something exponential, actually. And this starts to change the game. You know, as individual artists, I can't recommend it at all. You know, for the artists we have, I mean, we have very fair deals. We split everything 50-50, always have. We have these classic handshake sort of punk rock deals is how we run the label. So it's not like we're giving the big chunk of that to the artists, where we're giving equal chunk as we take. It's a really a bit of a mixed blessing, but I would say that, you know, my basic critique of it remains the same. It doesn't like blind me to the fact that the system really doesn't function, you know, and in the long term, it will never be a replacement for the kind of potential, just basic sustainable money that you could get from selling physical product. You know, it's the old adage. It's like, you know, 1 million streams gives you 3,000 euros roughly. So if you split that with the label, that's 1,500 for each. You know, you can sell vinyl. You can sell, 150 vinyl at 10 euros. You make the same money.
I agree totally.
So it's just very warped. You know how it's all been reorganized, and not that the old system was great either, by the way, but you know what we've really done now is just make it even more difficult for artists. And you know, as much as I say that it helped us as a label, you know, labels have gone like this. I mean, labels are so small now. And what they can contribute to artists is even less and less. And this is, I think, the most disturbing part of it. The system sort of works, but, you know, like we're a very mid-sized independent label at this point. And we should be able to, you know, in the old scheme of things, we would really be able to contribute more to the artist, you know, making the record, all of these things. We get no state support whatsoever. We got some in the pandemic, but, it's very frustrating to see like where like a label like us sits in the industry now, and at the same time, like how few resources we really have. It just shows you just how radically it has shrunk, and the roles that all of us play become very different. And I think it's implied in your question too of, the basic business model of how labels and artists related to each other up until the pandemic was starting to become very clear. It's like, essentially, you don't expect to make money from your record, but you still want a label because the label will be able to do some promotion for you, so you can get out there to play these live shows. You'll make your money from the live show. The label will make something from you playing live shows, and this will kind of work. And I say kind of work. It's not.
We have the same model. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think it's industry-wide. I think it's like not
very clear and accurate, I must say.
I think it's a very unconvincing overall model, but it still sort of worked. Okay, but when the pandemic comes, this was completely disrupted, and then you see that actually how flawed the system really was, because artists should be able to also make money from their records. Small labels should be able to make at least break even. Nobody's trying to make really money in this business. It's just like survive so you can help put out records that you love and you want people to hear.
Yeah, it's a small business. It's not show business.
It's not show
anymore.
Business, but it really showed us even more and more like how flimsy the foundation that this so-called business model had been reduced to. It's really, really precarious and vulnerable, and it exposed a lot of things. And I think even some artists even thought, like, why am I putting records out with a label? I could do this on my own, and I get a bigger cut, on each one that I sell. I mean, some artists are in the position to do that. And it shook the whole thing up a little bit. And I think it's good that it shook it up, because I think it forces us to ask really, kind of more penetrating questions about how it all functions.
Yeah. Timothy, sorry, I didn't ask you. Do you have a label, or are you just a solo?
I have there is a label that is working for some of my projects, my solo projects and my large ensemble, called Lichen. It's called Carton Records. They are based in Lyon. That's it.
Okay, so you have your projects on streaming platforms?
Actually, not really. I have my projects on YouTube. Mm-hmm. For the music, I have a bit of music on SoundCloud, but it's like on my website. But then, the album I released are on a platform, but it's not really related to my projects, the album I released, so it's a bit different. I'm always working on one album, like one work, and it's not really related to one band or whatever.
The reason I ask is because there was a debate about. I agree with Chris. It's streaming is great for labels if you have the bigger repertoire you have. But for musicians, I think what this COVID time showed us is that the Spotify and Apple model, where they gather all the money and distribute it only to those who have like 1 million streams and more, it's not really democratically working. So now SoundCloud is trying something else, like a subscription-based model where I am a subscriber of SoundCloud and I only listen to Timothy's music. You will get my subscription. Yeah. So maybe your thoughts on that.
Well, I also I think it's, right now the big streaming services put it all in a pool. It's a little bit like what some collecting rights societies do. It always plays the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, in a way. And I think there's one strong argument. I think Deezer has started to do it, actually, strangely enough. So one of the bigger ones has said that this is unfair, and we should try to do it on a, when you play that artist, when you stream that artist's music, that is, going directly whatever their monetization path is.
And you know the exact time that it's been listened, so
Exactly.
There's not a reason not to distribute it.
Yeah, the only reason is that the major labels are the main investors in companies like Spotify and Tidal and these companies. That's what keeps it from being a fair system. That's why the algorithms play the way they do. Algorithmic stuff will always play to the lowest common denominator. That's how they gear it, because it's easier for them. The statistics are clear. There's 50% of everything on Spotify has something like less than 500 plays. 50% of the repertoire, 70 some million songs. It's shocking what's going on there, actually. And
I think Deezer is French.
It is French, yes.
Yeah. So Timothée, again, French are again head of the improvements.
Well, I'm not sure about that.
See, I guess you have to be French to understand the problems. We just see the good stuff.
Yeah.
We are an old country.
Yeah.
And the other thing, honestly, I'm not really good at. I don't know a lot about this, because it's absolutely not my way of eating music. And label do it for me to put my music on it, but I'm not really. I'm not. I like internet or whatever. I'm not saying all this shit, but just I don't really know how to think about it. What to think about how money is. Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm not sure that this period was. That the live stream platform and stuff like that for really. Yeah, I'm not sure it was really good for artists. That was good maybe for labels. And okay, there was the Bandcamp Friday, and sometimes I had like $10 on my bank account. I would buy a kebab, and but that's the only thing, And to me, that was not but it's not really helping for money. But to me, that it's more like excuse me. But I think that musicians, they found many nice ways and super idea to to get the best of the period and to do something about it. And to me, there was a big discussion in France just after the first lockdown. It was like, okay, the government wants to give the key to the big institutions to find solutions in this period for artists. I'm just talking about artistic realm, but the government is ready to give the keys to the big institution for sure. But it's like so clear that all the small collective companies, small underground places, squad, whatever, they have since many years the solutions for that kind of situation, because they know how to build an artistic artistic proposal that will fit for like small audience in specific conditions, and so we were really like wondering how we could do like this between big institution and us, because they have the money and they have the rights to do stuff, but small teams, finally, they have the solutions because they did it since like years, and they know how to react at the last moment and stuff.
That's right.
And for me, that was a big question of that.
Thank you. Just maybe to wrap up, we're running out of time. What are your thoughts, both of you, on the future? What the future holds? Will the prices, let's say, of vinyl go up? I know there's a lot of backlog on vinyl production right now. will the prices of live gigs go up or down? What do you think?
Well, I think what Timothy just said is actually, something that we should think very seriously about. The idea that how can we, and I was sort of saying it on this, this idea of like what the previous business model was also for labels and artists working together. We have to find ways that are more sustainable, ways of getting music out there, making music. And I think it's looking at real communities. It's looking at, this fragmentation forces us to look more, at the ground floor, more at the underground again. And I think that's a good thing, because, the forces in the music industry, the one thing that we learned about the internet is still can be a very subversive force, both good and bad, by the way, obviously. But the one thing we saw with internet businesses is that in a lot of ways, it tends to even go to more monopolistic kind of formations than we ever imagined. There was this idea that it would be this atoms of democracy, out there. But the thing is, it's so easy to consolidate on the internet, and that companies like Spotify and the big record companies now, they've done that, and they've kind of created, in a way, this kind of wide open space that we can start thinking about, new ideas, because they've sort of taken away so much of it. It's over here, and there's no way to penetrate that. So in reality, we're sort of left having to think how to rebuild. It's actually, a lot of what they do is just irrelevant to interesting music and, progressive musical ideas. So I think that's
new musical ideas.
New musical ideas, because streaming services are they're working against new musical ideas. They want new music, but they don't want subversion. They want it clearly to be something that's reproducing itself, reproducing the algorithms. It's all very contained. And we see it, 95% of all streams at Spotify are from 5% of the artists. I mean, that's just, it's clear what all of that is. And so we need to break out of just, obsessing ourselves with that and focus on other things.
I agree. Timothy, anything to add for the conclusion?
I would say, but it seems quite clear that for the future, there is like two main directions. There is the institutional direction, maybe, or let's say like the thing of a very electronic world, not electronic, but like connected world, and trying to keep the same world for long, and this thing, and on the other hand, many people trying to find local solution, and try to get back to that. And I think that I'm not talking about music. I'm talking about
in general, yeah.
In general, and I think that will be at least something that I'm really into it. But I think we should think a lot of how we can bring this music, like our creative music, our new music, how we could bring it to like audience that have not access to it. And I'm like, since 10 years, I'm organizing festival with no money, nothing, in the countryside. And there is no way we just keep our music, and we keep like real contemporary music creation, experimental improv, and we play it, for farmers and family and stuff like this.
That's great.
It works. And I think that's something very important to do. And that's, to me, I think in the 2021, that's part of my role and part of my job to do this path toward this audience, and because finally they need it more than everybody. And I'm doing my stuff for them. I'm not doing my stuff for people who comes to this huge festival each year. Okay, I'm also doing it for them, but so I think trying to reflect in that direction, and to relocalize our process is something very important, and that could maybe help us. Yeah.
Great, thank you. We'll leave it at that. It's a really positive message from both of you. I thank you for your participation, for taking the time, and it was really nice to meet you, even though it was remotely. Chris, maybe we'll see each other in Ljubljana sometime.
I'm sure we will. Yeah.
Timothée, maybe in France, on the countryside.
Would be nice. Have a good festival, man.
All right. Take care, guys. Nice to meet you.
Bye bye.
Nice to meet you. Ciao.
Ciao.